A very good afternoon, a very good morning, everyone. Lilian here, and I'm here today to do this recording, especially for all of the students who attended the Excel workshop 2 days ago on the 19th of May. For those of you who attended the workshop on 19th of May, you would know that I could not finish what I had intended to finish. And so I did make you a promise and say that I will do the recording for part 3 of the Excel workshop. And I believe Ms. Zarina would be happy to upload the recording into the FOMS YouTube channel. Okay, so we're going to get things started. Let me start by sharing my screen. Okay. So just a quick recap, right? I have created 3 templates or 3 parts of the Excel. We've only completed part 1 and part 2, right? So today, probably for an hour or so, I'll be spending to explain to you a little bit about what I've prepared for part 3. So if you look at part 3, I've actually come up with some amount of data. This is all just dummy data. And then I've also come up with some questions, right? So we're going to go through all these questions. And I'm also going to add something here, which is reporting. Reporting is also very important if you're attached to any clubs or societies, because you always have to do reporting, you know. So I will show you how to report from Excel to PowerPoint and from Excel to Microsoft Word. Right, so I think we will do the reporting at the end once we have filled up everything. So what we have here is, okay, let me just zoom in a little bit so you're able to see clearly what I have here. So if you look at column A, this is just a list of student IDs followed by the student name, and then I have the student email, personal email. Log in using username. We will do all of this in a while. Ticket price, type of seat, payment status. So these 3 I have added just to create a situation where you are organizing an event or you're organizing a function where people need to buy tickets, all right? And with the different tickets comes the different types of seats. And of course, if you are selling tickets, then you also might want to update on the payment status. Perhaps some have paid, some have not paid, you know. So I'm just giving an example of a scenario that could happen. Okay, so let's take a look at the instructions here. I've numbered the instructions, so we will take a look at it one by one. Now, the first one is freezing the relevant panels. Now, I spoke about freezing panels in my Excel workshop. So I thought I would just do a quick repetition on freezing panels here. Now, if you want to freeze the panes, you often do it if you have a lot of data that you're working with. So for example, here we can see very clearly this is the column header and the data is at the bottom. So because I have a lot of data, so when you scroll down, you tend to miss out on what the column headers are. So you would tend to forget, hey, this one is what column, this is referring to what column header, this is referring to. Avoid you from scrolling up and scrolling down all the time. What we often do is we go and freeze the panes. So when you go to the View tab and click on Freeze Panes, you will find that there are a couple of different options. So I believe I have actually explained to you clearly what these 3 different functions are and how is it different from one another. But I thought maybe I'll just do a quick recap for you, right? Now, freeze first row is very straightforward. Freeze first top row means you're going to freeze the first row. That is what freeze top row means. So this is very easy if, let's say, wait, let me click on this. This is very easy to know because when you say freeze top row, it says freeze the first row. So once you have enabled that option and you scroll down, you will notice that the column header stays where it is, right? Okay, it stays where it is. This is good if you have nothing above the column headers. So in the part 2 of the applications, I demonstrated to you that this is not always the case. Sometimes above this, let me just quickly open part 2 here. So sometimes above the column headers, you might have other things written like this. You see, this is the column header. My column header is at row number 3, and I have something else up here. This is the bigger title, or like this. You see, the column headers are at row 2, and at the first row, I have something else, the bigger title. So if you have a template that looks like this, then you cannot click on the freeze top row option. It would not work. If you click on the first top row option, then what will freeze would be the first row. So in this kind of situations, if you want to still freeze the column header, then the rule of thumb is you always click below the column headers. All right, so I repeat again, you always click below the column headers. So if you want to freeze these column headers at row number 2, then you have to click the row below that. That is the easiest rule of thumb. Okay, if you want to freeze this one, then you have a straightforward option. So in this scenario, if let's say you click on row number 3 and you go to the view, freeze panes, and if you go to freeze panes, you can't go to the freeze top row anymore because this one will only freeze the first row. So in this scenario, I've already selected row number 3, and now I have to click freeze panes, and it will do the same thing, you see, but it's just at different ways of doing it. All right. Now, the other one, which is freeze column, works exactly the same way, but you use freeze column if you have a lot of data like this. So you have your student ID, you have your student name, and then you have to move the scroll bar to the left to see what is on the left here. Can you see? So sometimes when you move like this, again, you miss out on what's happening on the left. So this one is referring to who you cannot remember. This is referring to who you cannot remember. You can't remember. You can't remember. So it can be a bit of an annoyance if you have to, scroll left and right all the time. So in this kind of situation is where you freeze the columns. So to freeze the columns also is very, very easy. You can just go to freeze panes. Okay, so they give you the option of freezing the column like this. All right, so you can actually freeze. Okay, so this is freezing the first column. If you want to freeze the second column onwards, let me click on unfreeze. Okay, if you want to freeze, let's say the student ID and the student name, what you should do is click on the column after that. For the rows, you have to click the row below, right? So for columns, almost the same. So you have to click the column after that. So if I click this, if I select on column C, that means I'm telling the software I want column A and column B to be frozen, right? To be free. So click on freeze panes and then you go click freeze panes. Okay, can you see? Click on freeze panes. So what you can see from here is freeze panes here works for rows and columns. All right. Freeze top row only works for the first row. Freeze first column only works for the first column. So if you want to freeze other columns, if you want to freeze other rows, then you have to use the freeze panes. Okay, so freeze panes works for rows and columns. All right, so you see I've already frozen the first two. So when you scroll, you are able to see very clearly. So you can see, okay, this first student, she paid this amount of ticket, the second student paid this amount of ticket, the third student paid this amount of tickets, so on and so forth. Okay. Can you freeze the columns and the rows? Of course, no problem. Okay, no problem. But you have to make sure this unfreeze at one time can use for one thing. It cannot be used for rows and columns. It can be used for columns or rows. So if you want to freeze the columns and the rows together, then you probably have to have this combination. That means top row and the freeze panes for the columns. Yeah. So if I have I think I already freeze the top row here. Okay, so I've already frozen the top row, and if I go to the left, okay, I haven't frozen this left. All right. So you can also freeze that. Okay. All right. Now let me move on. Now I'm just going to freeze the top row first. Yeah, easier. Okay, now moving on to the second one, assign type of seats based on ticket price. So if you look at this table that I have here, I have three types of seats, which are standard, premium, and VIP. And it is also associated with the amount of ticket price. So 10 ringgit is a standard seat, 20 ringgit is a premium seat, and 30 ringgit is a VIP seat. Now, if you have criteria like this, criteria means it has to be at least two, right? 2 or 3 or 4 or more, it doesn't matter. But if you have like certain criteria, then you have to use the if statement or the if function, right? What kind of criteria you might ask? For example, it's a simple yes, no. Attending or not attending. Okay, so maybe like a RSVP reply. Paid or unpaid. Talk about payment status, for example, or you have, like in this case, you got 3 criteria, or maybe you might have 4 criteria or 5 criteria. It doesn't matter. But if you have at least more than 2 criteria, then you have to use the if function. So if function works with criteria. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the type of seat here. Okay, so let me enlarge it a little bit more so you are able to see. So I'm going to show you how to write an if function. You can actually go to the formulas and find the if function here. But for a lot of the formulas, I tend to prefer to type it myself because I'm in more control. I know what I'm doing, right? So, but really it depends on you. I think if you are not comfortable with writing the functions, perhaps you can get yourself comfortable in writing the functions. If you are really not, then you can go here. It's the same thing, all right? So whatever formula or functions that you use in Excel, you must always start with the equal sign. And I remember mentioning this in the first workshop where it is not case sensitive. So if you're going to write the function name in uppercase or lowercase, it doesn't matter. All right, so I'm going to put in my first if function. And once you put in a function, you must always follow with a parenthesis. That goes with every function. Okay, you have a function, you must have a parenthesis. You have a function, you must have a parenthesis. Right. And then I often like to follow the parameters that are within the brackets here. This acts as a form of guidance. So it guides the user what kind of parameters do you put into the function. So the first one is a logical test. Now for the logical test, my advice is always follow the criteria here. That means if the ticket is 10 ringgit, then what do you want to output? If the ticket is 20 ringgit, what do you want to output? If the ticket is 30 ringgit, what is it that you want to output? So you start in that order. You will not go wrong. Okay, so ticket price is referring to this. Okay, so we always have to refer to the ticket price to output something. So I'm going to just click on the first option here. And if this one is 10 ringgit, so I like to start in the chronological order. So if F2 equal 10, what is it that I want to output? So if you're using the if statement, anything that you want to output, you have to put it in double quotes. So you have open double quote, you have close double quote. So it is not a single quote. You have to look at your keyboard, make sure it's a double quote. All right. So it's not a single. It's not like this. Sorry, it's not like this. It's a single. You have to straight away put in a double quote. It makes a difference because if you put a single quote, it's a wrong syntax. So you won't be able to do what you want to do. Right. And then you want to output standard. Okay, so close double quotes. Now, after you put the comma, this is where you put in the second if statement, which is I'm going to put in if, and always remember after you put in the function, always open parentheses. And this is where I'm going to put my second criteria, which is if F2 equal 20, then I want to output premium because it's tied up to premium. So I insert another comma to put in my final criteria. If statement, open parenthesis, if F2 equal 30, comma, I want to output VIP. Double quote. So the amount of bracket or parentheses I need to close depends on how many you open. So currently I've opened 3, so that means I have to close it 3 times. So count out aloud if you think you're going to make a mistake. All right, so once you think everything looks good, then you press enter. Now once you press enter, of course, if you convert this to a table, you will find your job a lot more easier because everything gets filled up. But this one I did not convert into a table yet, so you just have to double click to fill everything up. Okay, now I just want to add on a little bit about the if function. So in this case, let me write it generally in a notepad. So just now what we did was we put the if function, okay, and we started off with the first cell, which was F2. So we say, okay, if F2 is a certain number, then you want to output something, right? So output something. Now, this double quotes here, sorry. So this double quotes here is for you to output a text. So in programming terms, we always say a string. A string is like an output of text, right? But basically, if you want to output certain text, you have to enclose it in double quotes. However, I just put like this. Huh? Now, if you wish to calculate a mathematical formula, for example, if the value is a certain value, it doesn't necessarily have to be equal. Perhaps it's greater than, or greater than equal to, or perhaps it's lesser than, like that. Or perhaps it's lesser than or equal to. So I do not know about the equation. The equation can be of any equation. So if let's say you have a certain criteria here, but upon achieving the criteria, you don't want to output something, you want to calculate something, then it's, okay, if x is this value, then I want to take this value multiplied by something. So if it is an equation do not enclose in double quotes. Okay, so equation means you just type the equation here. For example, you need to take G2 multiplied with H3X. So mathematical equation do not enclose in double quotes. Just leave it like that. All right, you only enclose in double quotes if it is a string of output. That means it is a text. Okay, I hope I've made that clear, yeah? Okay, let's move on to the next one, which is use VLOOKUP to display name and type of seat based on student ID. Okay, so based on the student ID, you want to output the name and the type of seat. Now, I've also demonstrated VLOOKUP in part 2. But for part 2, if you remember, I demonstrated 2 types. No? One is the data being a regular data like this. One is I converted the data into a table. So the referencing is slightly different. Okay, like this one is not a table, so we have to, let me just show it again so that you're able to know how a VLOOKUP does. If you want to know how a VLOOKUP is referenced based on a table, just view the previous recording. Okay, so we're going to click on the cell here, the name cell, right? And always start with the equal sign, put in the VLOOKUP. So once you see VLOOKUP there, if you want to insert the formula into the cell, do not press enter. Enter will not work. Press tab. Okay, tab gets the formula inserted into the cell. Okay. Now, the first parameter is the lookup value. So in this case, our lookup value will be student ID. That means based on a student ID, you're going to look up on the other values. Okay, comma. And the next one is table array. So table array means you have to select the data. So the data does not include the column headers. It does not include numbering if it has. Okay. God, I deleted it. I got to make the screen a little bit smaller, so it's easy for me to select the tile. Okay. I'm going to put the VLOOKUP here. First lookup value, comma. So now I need to highlight the table array. I'm going to select the data here. Okay. I'm not selecting the column header, yeah. So I'm selecting just the data. Go right to the bottom. So this is where it differentiates if you're using a table. If you're using a table, you don't have to select the entire data like what I'm doing now. Okay, so it saves you a little bit of time because you just insert the name of the table. All right. Column index number is at what column the name is located. So all you have to do is just do a simple counting. You know that student ID starts with column number 1 and student name is column number 2. Okay, so you know that the value where your name is at column number 2. Then do you want a true approximate or an exact match? Always go with the exact match. So if you're going with the exact match, you have to type in false. If you're going with the approximate match, you got to type in true. Can you argue with this? If you don't want to put true or false, cannot, because that is how the formula is being programmed. You cannot argue with this. Okay, you just have to choose your option, close your parenthesis, then press enter. Of course, when you press enter, you get this because there's no value in the student ID. Okay, let me just copy one of the student ID here. We get the name displayed. So type of seed is in a similar fashion, right? So you add in your VLOOKUP. The first lookup value is always the ID, followed by a comma. The table array, again, if you can remember the table array, then you can just type it in. I could not remember the table array, what I did just now. So therefore, I need to select it again. Like I mentioned just now, if you have inserted this as a table, it really saves your job a lot. Just imagine if you have a very, very big table. So it really saves you a lot of time by highlighting the table. Column index number, okay, so type of seed, we have to count at what column number the type of seed is located. So student ID is column 1, student name is column 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it is at column 7. And then add in the false and close parenthesis. So you can see clearly that Muhammad Lukman is, he bought a standard ticket. So you can change, somebody bought a VIP ticket and so forth. So that is how a VLOOKUP is. And I've also explained VLOOKUP is very useful if you want to look up just certain values based on a lot of data that you have. It would not be the same as Control F. Control F is finding something, you know. So this one is very straightforward. You just extracting something from the large amount of data and showing what you need. Okay. Now, the next that I'm going to show you is called Countif, and I'm going to show you two types of Countif. Yeah, so that's why I put Countif here and I put Countif here. But basically, Countif means you want to count something. I think in the part 1, I showed you different types of count. I showed you count, and I showed you count A or counter. So I explained to you the difference, and we've learned about it already. So now we're going to look at the third type of count, which is also very, very useful. If you want to count something. So count if means count something. When you're dealing with a lot of data, you always want to count something. For example, you want to write a report and you want to tell stat office how many students have paid and how many students have not paid. So you want to count, okay, how many have paid, how many have not paid. In this kind of situations, you can use the count if instead of counting manually. Or you want to do a summary, you know, so you want to do a report, you want to do a summary and say, okay, these students bought, okay, these many students bought the standard tickets. These many students bought the premium tickets. These many students bought the VIP tickets. So you want to just write a report because you want to summarize what has happened for the event. All right. So in that kind of situation, you use a count if. Okay, so in a similar example here, I want to count how many students bought 10 ringgit tickets, how many students bought 20 ringgit, and how many students bought the 30 ringgit tickets. Okay, now when you want to use Countif, you again always start with the equal sign. Like, where am I using the equal sign? Sorry, put in here. Put in the equal sign and type in the function, which is Countif. Always remember, after the function, always follow by a parenthesis. Okay, function, parenthesis. You cannot run away from that. Now, the parameters that you include for the Countif function is very simple. You have two, which is the range and the criteria. Range is basically telling you what you want to count. Okay, what you want to count. So you only select that part. Okay, so let's go and select the range. So the range is basically looking at the ticket price, right? So we're going to go and select the ticket price range here. Okay, so I've only selected the ticket price. Okay, and I'm going to follow it by a comma. Now the criteria is what? You want to count how many bought 10 ringgit. Okay, so if you look at how the data is being displayed, there is no the RM and then 10. There's no RM20, it's just the numbers. So what you do is very important for you to follow. Okay, so if the value displayed is 10, you do it like that. If the value displayed is RM, then you follow. But if you're going to write RM, like I mentioned just now, it is not case sensitive. So you can write capital R, capital M, or small r, small m, it doesn't matter. But it has to be the same. Otherwise, Excel cannot link both of them together. Press enter. So from here, you can know instantly that there are 50 students who bought the 10 tickets. Okay, as simple as that. So for the rest of this, you can easily do it, but I think what would make it a lot more faster if I'm just going to drag this down. It's a bit of a shortcut, but you need to know what you are doing. Okay, if I go to the second cell here, I'm going to press F2. So because the range is the same. Okay, sorry. Wait, we're going to do it like this. You have to change this to the absolute referencing. Okay, how you change it to absolute referencing? You press the function key F4. How you change this to absolute referencing? Press the function key F4. So why is this important? Because when you drag it down, you will notice that the range will not change. The range has to be the same. But if you do not, it will apply the relative referencing format. Okay. So once you have this here, all you have to do is just change the value. So it saves you a lot of time rather than typing the entire formula again. But if you like typing the entire formula again, go ahead. All right. So similarly for the RM30 ringgit, it's the same range. I'm just going to change the criteria value here to 30. From here, we can see, okay, there's 50 students who have bought the 10 ringgit voucher, 10 ringgit ticket, 24 students who have bought the 20 ringgit, and 35 students who have bought the 30 ringgit. Okay, now I want to show you another way how you can use Countif. So this other way is you want to make it like a more of a variable type of entry. That means this is like a fixed type of entry, but here is more variable. That means under the ticket price, you can put in the value. So for example, let's say right now, the only example is 3. But of course, in reality, maybe you have more than 3 types, right? So let's say the ticket price I put in is 10. When I press enter, I want to see how many people bought 10 ringgit. So I can keep on changing the value. So let's say I want to see 30 ringgit to bought. So I press enter and then the value appears here. Okay, so this is a slightly different approach, but you use the same function. Okay, so let me show you how this is done. Start off with the equal sign, put in the Countif. The range is the same. So let me just go and do a quick selection of the range again. then comma, let's collect enter. Okay. Now, for the criteria, previously we put 10 ringgit, 20 ringgit because it's text, right? So text has to be put it in inverted commas. So now what I have to do is the criteria. I'm going to click the cell here. Okay, I'm just going to click the cell and then close parentheses. You see? Why is the range? I think the range is different here. Yeah? Why is it here 50? Why is it here 54? So I have to check the range. The range here is F2 to F122. So I put in the wrong range. F2, right? Okay. Just a minute. Let me just change. It's not supposed to be F2. Okay. Now it's correct. It's not F14. I think I selected the wrong range. Yeah? Just a minute. It's a bit tricky if I have to zoom in because my screen is not very big. Okay, so now it matches up. So that means 10 ringgit is 54. So if I change it to 20, it's 27. And then if I change it to 30, it's 40. Okay, now it's correct. So you can see it's the same method of using Countif, but it's a slightly different approach. One is you have a fixed value. Another one is it's a variable where you can just attach or link the cell here. So that means the cell here can change values depending on how many different types you have. All right. When to use which, you have to decide on that. I always say use as and when necessary. Okay. The next one is SUMIF. I think SUMIF is also a very important function to know because all these functions is important when you're doing reporting, because you want to summarize what has happened, right? So if you want to summarize in terms of numbers, then you use formulas like this or functions like this. Now, SUMIF is if you want, for example, to calculate, okay, this is in terms of counting. This one is 54 students have bought 10 ringgit. This one is in terms of the value. So how much is it, what is it, how much is it based on ringgit Malaysia, based on numerical value or currency value? Of course, this is very easy. We know that because it's 54 and it's 10 ringgit, we know that the total value is 540 ringgit. We know that, right? It's very straightforward. But for the rest, you probably want to know if it's not that easy to calculate. Okay? Now, for the total value or for the SUMIF, so SUMIF, you can understand it as you want to sum up something. Okay, you want to sum up something. You want to total up something. That is what SUMIF is. So again, what you do to use this function is you use the equal sign. You put in the equal sign and then you put in the word, or not the word, the function called SUMIF. Use your tab to insert the function in. So you have the SUMIF function there. Now, once you have the SUMIF function there, if you look closely, I'm not sure whether you're able to see clearly in my screen, but here there are 3 parameters that you need to add in. So you have the range, the criteria, and the sum range. So like in this case, we are just summing up the ticket price, right? So the range will be the ticket price. So I'm going to select this. I just have to make sure my selection is correct this time. I remember it now. It's F2 to F122. Okay. Where is it? Okay. So once you have the range here, okay, you put a comma. And the next one is the criteria. Criteria is what you want to sum. So here later on we will put, okay, I want to sum values that shows 10 ringgit. So it will take all the 10 ringgit and sum it out all together. So because this is like a variable, I'm not fixing this. So I'm going to click this cell. All right, I'm going to click this cell and followed by another comma. Sum range. So what is it that you want to sum up? It's going to be the same range, you know. So in this case, I'm just going to type it out, right? F2 until F122. Uppercase, lowercase, doesn't matter, right? So I'm going to press enter, and then I'm going to try it out by putting in the 10 value. So this is correct, right? So for the 10 ringgit tickets, the total value in terms of ringgit Malaysia is 500, your sales lah basically. Yeah? So amount of sales is 540 ringgit worth of sales. If you put 20 ringgit, 27 times 2 coincidentally is also 540, so you don't see it changing. Let me change it to 30 first. It's 1,200. It is also very straightforward lah, yeah? But you have to use the function properly as and when needed. Okay, so at least you know now if it's 10 ringgit or 20 ringgit, 10 and 20 ringgit somehow coincidentally is the same. But you know what? I'm going to change it. Which is to 10. Maybe this is better. Okay. So let me change this. All right. So now 10 ringgit is no longer 54 because I've added another 10 ringgit here. And then 20 ringgit, at least you get a different value. And then 30 ringgit, you get another value. All right. So now at least you know how to use Countif, how to use if, how to use Countif, how to use SUMIF. This if function is really, really, really very powerful function. There's so many things you can do. So we've done all this already. We've done the VLOOKUP. We've done the count number of students you've purchased. Okay, we've done that. If sum up the total value based on the seat, we've also done that. All right, let's move on to this one. Insert student email using concatenate function. Here. Okay, what is concatenate function? Let's start with that. Concatenate function is, I know the name sounds very canggih, right? Very sophisticated, but concatenate basically means you want to combine two or three texts together. You want to combine something. That's called concatenate. All right, you want to combine a few texts together. It can be 2, 3, 4, it doesn't matter. You want to combine something. So in this scenario, what I did was, let's say you have created a Google form for the student to fill in, and you forgot to ask them to enter their student email, but you have already asked them to insert their student ID and their student name. So in this kind of scenario, what we can do is, because for student email is the student ID followed by the symbol at student.mmu.edu.my, right? If I'm not wrong. So you want to add that domain name part to the student ID. Then you can create your student email. So that is concatenate, because you are concatenating the student ID followed by the domain name. How you put it in formula, you insert the equal sign and you type in the concatenate. Just find the word concatenate and you will insert it in by using the tab function. So you look at the parameters, it says text 1, text 2, and then ... So what this means is you can just add in as many texts as you want together. Okay, so what you want to concatenate? You want to concatenate this one, ID, comma, and then you want to concatenate the alias symbol. Correct? So because it's a text, so anything that is a text, please enclose it in double quotes. So you just put in like this, student.mmu.edu.my, close double quotes. Don't forget to close your parentheses as well. You see? So what it does is it takes the student ID from here, then it concatenates it with the domain name that you want. Just remember, because I don't have a table, if you convert this to a table, everything will be filled out automatically. All right. So you can say it takes the student ID and it adds it with this. It takes the student ID and adds it with this. So that is called concatenate. Now going back to the next instruction, it says extract username from email. Okay, extract username from email. Now, Wait, let me move here. What I wanted to show you here is another way to use the left function. I demonstrated the left function in the workshop on the 19th of May. Okay, so for the left function, it was actually very straightforward. What I did for that, just a quick 1-minute recap, was I put the equal sign here. I put the left, okay, open bracket, the text that I want to extract from here, and followed by the number of characters. So I put in 10 because our ID number has got 10 characters, and it will, what do you call that? Extract that 10 characters. Correct? So this is very straightforward, also very easy because every ID, whether it's a student ID or a staff ID, it consists of 10 digits, 10 numbers. So it's super easy to just put in the 10 here. Okay, but it becomes very tricky if you have variable lengths. That means some are short length, some are longer length. So when we talk about our personal email, we all have got different way how we structure our personal email, right? Okay. So I'm going to show you in that kind of scenario, how do we still use the left function. Now, you've noticed that the personal email section, I've left it blank because it was just way too many records for me to put in the personal dummy data. All right, so I'm just going to put in sample, maybe a few data here, and I'm going to show you how to extract it. The rest I'm not going to fill up. It's just too many to fill up. Okay, I'm just going to type in a few here. Let's say Vidya. Dummy data, okay. Let's say Abdul Rahman. Nazi _ 1014 at Gmail. Maybe another one. Hey, sorry, wrong name. This one is Samir. So Samir _ one more. Allah Nabi. Okay. Yahoo. Yahoo. Let me just put in the first four names, okay? So if you, what the same? If you notice, if you look at how the personal email has been constructed, some are short emails, some are a bit longer, some are a bit more longer and all that. So you have different lengths of email addresses. Now, in this scenario, let's say you're creating a system and you want to take the username as the login ID. Okay, I repeat. So in this kind of situation, if let's say you want to extract the username. So in one email, you have the username, you have the domain name. So you just know the terms, right? So you have the username and domain name. So username is what you create. Domain name is depending on the software that you are looking for. Normally it's Gmail. I don't know whether anybody uses Yahoo anymore, but currently it's Gmail. And you want to extract. How do you still use the left function to extract? Okay, so I'm going to show you this. It's just a little bit more trickier, but I think once you get the hang of it, it's not that difficult. Yeah. You're going to start with of course, the equal sign followed by the left function and parentheses. This is something that you cannot run away from. Okay. Now the text. Text is, of course, we are extracting from where? Extracting from this one. So in this case, it's B2 followed by the comma. So previously, for the number of characters, we straight away put 10. But we cannot put 10 here because then it will not apply. So what we're going to do is, if you're extracting something from email, you have to find something in common for all the emails. And we can see very clearly what all emails have in common is the symbol, the alias symbol. Every email has got the alias symbol, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to ask the left function to start finding the alias symbol from the left. And once it starts finding, it finds the alias symbol, it's going to stop and it's going to return whatever that is towards the left of the alias symbol. Do you get it? Okay, I'll repeat that again. So what we're going to do is we're going to ask the Excel to find. Okay, we're going to ask Excel to find. Find what? Find the alias symbol. So once it finds the alias symbol, it's going to stop. And then it's going to return whatever that is towards the left of the alias symbol. How do we do that? Here, we add another function inside. So we're going to add another find function. This function must open parentheses. What you want to find? You want to find what? Tell me. You want to find the alias symbol. So because it's a text, right? So you put the alias symbol here. Okay, so after you find the alias symbol, put the comma. Follow this, and then you find, okay, what you want to find? You find this one. Within what text? Of course, within this text. So again, within the entire text of D2, comma. Okay. The start number. Start number means automatically, because you're using the left function, it will start counting from the left. When it starts counting from the left, they will take the first character as number 1, second character number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, like that. So it gives you the option where you want to start looking. Because in this case, you want to start looking from character number 1. Okay, so you put character number 1. If you want to start looking from character number 2, then you put character number 2. Okay, so I'm going to close this. So I've opened parentheses here, I've closed here. So I have to close one more time because I've opened it here as well, right? So I'm going to close one more time. Let's enter. Let me see what has happened. Wait, forget about this one, forget about this because there's no values here, okay? So look at the first 4 first. So what has happened is the software has started searching from character number 1 and it has stopped searching after it has located the alias symbol. And then it has written whatever letters that came before the alias symbol. Now, the only issue that we have is we don't want to see the alias symbol. We only want to see the username. So what do? We go back to the formula, right? Because it's extracting, it is stopping at the alias and also returning the alias symbol. We don't want that. So you go back to the function. What we do is, you see, you've already tried to find here, right? So we go back inside the bracket. That means once the Excel has found the alias symbol, okay, and it's going to return, before it returns it, I want to minus that 1. I want to minus that. So I'm going to put minus 1. Okay, I'm going to put minus 1. So you find the alias. After you find, you minus the alias and then you return it. That's what it does. Then you take away. So that's how you can extract just the username from a given personal email. Okay, using any amount of characters. Okay, so I hope that part is clear. Right, next. Count number of guests who have not made the payment. Count number of guests who have not made the payment. Okay, so I believe this one you should be able to know how to do this based on what we've already covered. So if you want to count the number of students who have paid or not paid, then just the Countif, right? So you can put it insert a borderline here so that it's you can either do it in this form, or you can do it like a variable form where you want people to insert it in. But I think in this case, because it's just 2 criteria, just do like this is fine. So you're going to use a Countif because you want to count something. You want to count how many people who paid, how many people who did not pay. So Countif will do the job. The range would be, just select the entire range here. And I'm going to put in the absolute referencing because later I'm just going to drag it down. So press F4 to put in the absolute referencing. I'm going to put the absolute referencing here as well. Comma. Oh, did I delete it? I'm sorry. Hold on. I think I did it. So delete it. Okay, F4. One more time. F4. Okay. Wait, sorry. I make it smaller a bit. Okay. Zooming in the screen is not working for me. Sorry. One more time. One more time. Ugh. Let me put in the criteria first. Key strategy. Okay. Criteria. Then I'm going to put in the. There we go. Okay. So no, for like the third, fourth time. This is unbelievable. This is unbelievable. I think this is happening. Hold on. Okay, enter. Oh, yeah, okay. So there are 62 people who have paid, okay? And I'm just going to use the fill handle to drag it down. And I'm pressing the function key F2, yeah? So when you use the function key F2, you're able to see in formula view. If you press escape, you are able to see the value or the output of it, right? So I'm pressing function key F2. So all you have to do is put in the not paid criteria here. How you want to write the not paid, it's up to you. That means you can have it small letters, capital letters. It doesn't matter because it's not case sensitive. However, you have to be cautioned. We cannot change the word. For example, you just say unpaid. But return a 0 because in your data, you did not put unpaid. You put not paid. So on that note, you have to be very, very careful. The word has to be the same. The only thing that doesn't matter is whether it's uppercase or lowercase. Okay? Now, lastly, is just also a repetition about the drop-down menu. Let's take a look at what we can do for the drop-down menu. So in this case, I think we can work on the ticket price, we can work on the type of seat, we can work on the payment status to be the drop-down menu as well. So let's take a look at maybe the type of seat that will be better. Thank you. So how do we create a drop-down menu? You just click on the first cell first, then you go to data, look for data validation. Choose the first option, data validation. And then under the validation criteria, you go to list. When you want to list down the source, you can list down as many sources as you want. You just have to separate the sources by a comma. If you don't separate by a comma, everything will go into one line. Okay, so for example, let's say you put, or even if you use a wrong symbol, everything will go into one line. Okay, so standard comma, premium. How you write it, if let's say, for example, here, I'm writing the P in small letter P. However you write here, that is how it's going to be shown. So if you want it to be in capital P, you have to put it here. All right, it will just, it will just extract exactly as what you have written. Premium, and then the last one is VIP, and then click OK. You have the column C. Okay, so I hope that is good. And then just use your fill handle, right? So because like just now, sorry, I did it too fast. So just now we only applied the drop-down menu for one. So you want to apply the drop-down menu for the rest. So just use your fill handle because this one is standard. Yeah? So then the drop-down menu will be applied for all the cells. All right, so we have come to the end of part 3. Now I hope consolidating part 1, part 2, and part 3 has given you some amount of knowledge on how you can organize your data properly. I think I've covered quite a number of different shortcuts, quite a number of formulas and functions, the way you do your charting. Before I end this recording, I'm going to do the final part, which is reporting. Okay, so how do you report in Microsoft Word and how do you report in Microsoft Excel? First of all, let me just open to a blank Word document. Okay. Open back to what is opening. Let me just. Now, let's say you want to report this. I'm just going to select this one. Okay, so showing that there are 3 types of tickets that you are selling, and then how many students bought each ticket. All right, so I'm going to copy this. Copy it. Now, when you want to paste it in your Word, let's say you're doing a report and you want to paste it, don't ever Control V, because Control V is not wrong. Okay, this Control V, just hold on. Control V is not wrong. The only problem with Control V is if there are changes in the Excel file, the changes will not be reflected here. So don't Control V. What instead? Let me copy this again. Copy. Right click and go to paste link. Right? Link. Paste link. Why paste link is important? Again, like what I've mentioned, if there are any changes. Now let's make a quick change. Okay. This is 20, so I'm going to change this 20 to 30. So 20 to 30, so you can see the values are different now. It's 55, 26, and 40. 55, 26, 40. You can see the changes are also reflected in the Word file. So that is the advantage that you have if you paste link. Right, so whenever you want to do reporting, always make sure you paste link. It doesn't matter what you're pasting. It could be also a graph, right? So whether you're pasting a chart or whether you're pasting a graph, don't Control V to paste, always paste it as link. So whether it's a chart or a table or a graph, paste as link. So that is always linked to the Excel document. Now, in a similar way, for PowerPoint, same thing also. There's a different way to go only. PowerPoint is opening. I'm just going to go and select this again. Okay, copy it. Actually, wait for the PowerPoint to open. Okay. Same thing, what I'm going to do is to paste the table here. I'm going to go to the paste option, but click on the pull down menu. Go to paste special. Okay, why have to go to paste special? You might ask why Microsoft Word can just right click and see, right? Because Microsoft Word, when you right click, the paste link is there. The option is there, but unfortunately for PowerPoint, when you right click, the paste link option is not there. How to go to paste link option? This is what I'm showing you. So you have to go to the drop down menu, you have to go to paste special. Okay, go to paste special and then paste link. Paste link. What are you pasting? You're pasting an Excel worksheet, right? So click OK. Then you get the link. So let's make another change. Okay, let's do this change again. Okay, let's change from 10 ringgit to 20 ringgit. So you see 54, 27, 40. 54, 27, 40. 54, 27, 40. And in Microsoft Word, 54, 27, 40. All right, so I hope you can see the difference when you paste link or just a regular paste. So always remember again, reporting, please make sure you paste it as link. For a Microsoft Word, it's as simple as right-clicking, the paste link option is there. But for Microsoft PowerPoint, you can't just right click because the paste link option is not there. Instead, you have to go to paste special. Okay, you have to go to paste special and you will see it as paste link. Now I have nothing to paste now, so the link is deactivated. Okay. So that brings the end of part 3. Brings the end of part 3. I hope all of you have benefited to some extent, and I hope we'll meet again for perhaps other soft skills in the future. I wish you best of luck as you progress forward. Thank you very much. Stay safe and stay happy always.